Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I want to share with you the brand new Stamp Market's Combo Ink Pad Organizer. As many of you know, for the last year and a half, I've been sharing my office, which means that my space is cut in half. So I need to find ways to keep my stash organized without taking up tons of space. I've shared the progression of my desk organization, going from this to this. That has worked really well for me because most of my ink pads are the old felt pad versions, which hold a lot of ink, and so I never really felt the need to buy refills. But since I started upgrading to the new dye inks with the foam pads, I knew that a lot of ink was transferring every time I stamped or did a technique, and so I always wanted to buy the ink pad refills as well. I've also rekindled my love for ink cubes and having both the cubes and the ink pads as well as the refills. The only problem is, right now, I'm storing all three of those supplies in three different spots in my office. So I have the ink pads behind me on my desk. On the other side of the room, I have a set of Alex drawers that I keep all of my ink cubes in. On the other end of that same wall, I have my Calyx unit, and that is where I currently store my refills. And that system was working fine for me for a while. But then the Stamp Market came out with their Combo Ink Pad Organizer. And as soon as I saw it, I knew that that was the answer to combining these three spaces into one. So let me show you the Stamp Market's Combo Ink Pad Organizer, the things that I love about it, and then I'm going to reorganize this little space behind me. The Stamp Market sent me their Combo Ink Pad Organizer, which is a patent pending storage for ink pads, ink cubes, and refill bottles. There are other formulations on their website as well, and I'll link to those down below. The Combo Ink Pad Organizer can store 10 ink pads, 10 ink cubes, and 10 refill bottles. You can see that it is very lightweight and it is sturdy at the same time. The foam in these spots for all of your supplies keeps them in place. It's absolutely brilliant, and you won't believe it until you see it. But here I put in a full-size ink pad, turned the organizer upside down, shook it, and just kept moving it around, and the ink pad hasn't budged a bit. So this is absolutely amazing because it is still very easy to take your supplies in and out of the organizer, even if you're sitting down and reaching for, across a desk. Very easy to remove things and put them back in. But if anything were to fall or topple or anything like that, none of your supplies are going anywhere. Also, you're not going to be able to just accidentally knock them out of your organizer. This is a great method for storing all three of these supplies in one. So I've taken out all of my Stamp Market ink pads, ink cubes, and refills. I love that they have these stickers for their ink pads. For my old organizer, I kept them on the short ends of the ink pads, but you can see here they also fit perfectly on the long ends of the ink pads, and this way you can see exactly what colors you have. And again, even adding more into the tray, and there's still no problems. I'm able to pick them up, shake them around, turn it over. I don't know when you do that, but if you like to go craft with friends, you could stack these on top of each other and bring them with you. No problems with things falling out or getting lost. So I am working with all of my ink pads, including the new ones from the Stamp Market from this summer, which I have the labels to put on the outsides. And then I'm also using their enamel dots. They have enamel dots in different series that go along with all of their ink pads. So their latest enamel dot series is perfectly coordinated to the summer ink pad series. So I saw on the Stamp Market's Instagram how they put those dots on the tips of the refill bottles so that you can see from a glance which color you're grabbing or putting back, which I think is absolutely brilliant. It also looks really cute when you have them all lined up, and I'll show you at the end how that looks. So I am basically putting my pinks and reds in this organizer here, and I just like to show you every couple of seconds that you can move this organizer around without any problems, without losing anything. That foam really keeps them in place, but like I said before, it also is very easy to take things out and put things back in, which is something that when I'm cleaning up, I want it to be easy to just put everything back. When I'm grabbing something real fast while I'm making a card, I want things to be able to just come right out. And these are the best of both worlds. So definitely keeps all of your supplies in order and in line, and also keeps them safe. And I think this is a really great way, if you have all three of these supplies, to keep them together. Like I mentioned before, I had my cubes in one spot, my refill bottles in another spot, and my ink pads on my desk, and it just wasn't really working for me in that way. But if you're looking for other types of ink pad storage, say you don't have any storage currently for your Distress Oxide inks, well, they have those as well in this same type of format where it's the bright white and it's lightweight plastic, but still very sturdy. It's not going to just break or snap or anything like that. And also with the patent pending design with the foam on the inside that keeps them in place. So they have them for the combo like I have here. They have them just for ink pads. They have them for the Distress Oxides. They have them for just ink cubes. So lots of different formulations that you can buy depending on what your needs are to get organized. For what I mentioned before, I really like having the refill bottles for these types of dye inks because the pads really give off so much ink even when you're just stamping. And I don't just stamp with these. I ink blend and I do all kinds of swiping techniques, and I know that I'm using up a lot of the ink. So I like to have the refill bottles right nearby and organized by color like this so that I can just easily and quickly refill them when I need to. I also, like I mentioned, like having the cubes as well as the pads because there are some techniques that are really much easier to do with the cubes rather than a full-size pad. I also did want to mention that the ink pad organizers also fit other ink pads. So here's a Gina K ink pad that fits perfectly in there. Here's a Lawn Fawn ink pad. So your standard typical ink pad size that is rectangular and about that depth and width is going to fit. Here's a Hero Arts that fits perfectly in there as well. And the reason that one was a little tricky was because I had something glued to the end. And this last guy here is a Simon Says stamp. So just lots of different typical size ink pads will fit in these organizers. They do come with these little tacky tapes. You get 2 of them per organizer so that you can attach them to your space. And I will talk later about how I use them to attach the ink pad organizers to each other to stack up. So at first I thought maybe I wouldn't use them, but I do recommend, especially if you're stacking a bunch, to use them. So now you can see that I have all of my Stamp Market ink pads, ink cubes, and refills in 4 of their combo ink pad organizers, and I've stacked those on top of each other. I did end up using the little sticky double-sided pads to keep those together so that they wouldn't topple over. One of the coolest things is before I used the double-sided pads, I was just stacking them on top of each other to see how high they went. And of course they did fall over because I hadn't had them adhered together, but nothing came out. Even when they toppled over, none of the ink pads, none of the cubes, none of the little bottles of refills came out of those units. So those foam really hold them in place, even though they are still so easy to move out and put back in. I love the smaller footprint of these organizers. You can see that it's set back against the wall, and that's really helpful because it gives me more room on my desk. They have other formulations of these organizers, so I will link to all of those down in the YouTube description box below so you can see what fits best for your organization. If you love seeing craft room organization videos, I have a whole playlist. I'm gonna link to that over here. As always, I wanna thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. As many of, blah, 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 blah. Also, I mean, seriously, that's like the simplest way to say it. Why would you say, okay, I'm like struggling with my mother tongue, apparently. It's never good.